Kason? Is it just sounds like Jason but with a K? Is that right?
Yes. Yes. How you guys doing?
Just fine. How are you?
I'm enjoying my day. Wow, this is
Okay.
crazy. Your name is Jimmy?
Yes, and Jeff is also
Okay.
here.
Hello.
Jeff? Hello.
Yeah,
Nice
Jeff.
to meet you, gentlemen. Okay, so
Remains to be seen.
I saw the stream, and this is my first time ever doing this sort of thing, but I just wanted to get a further, I guess, knowledge on these geopolitical and global conflicts from people that seem to have a lot better grasp on the information. Because I myself, I know the prompt says I'm a libertarian, but I classify myself as a paleo libertarian so like
So who'd
socially
you
I
vote
am
for in
liberal, but I view.
2024 in the general election?
I'm sorry?
Well, just make it easier to figure out where to begin. Who did you vote for in the 2024 general election? Trump or Kamala?
Okay, so I voted for Donald Trump.
Yep. And how about 2020?
During the first time I voted for, this is when Trump and Joe Biden were going head to head. I voted for that. And of course,
You voted for
Joe
who?
won. I voted for Donald Trump the first
Okay,
time,
so
and then the
so
second
you're a
time I
two-time
voted
voter. If you could have voted in Hillary versus Trump, who would you have voted for?
honestly, in that election, I probably wouldn't have voted at all.
Okay. Well, so for at least the two elections you did vote, there's clear differences between the two. And so whether or not you want to be defined as a libertarian, a paleo libertarian, or whatever, a proposition with two possibilities were given, and your values did still line up with one of those two. And so you're not going to escape whatever. You can try and present some nuance, but I am going to assign you some notions on that basis.
Okay. Well,
I mean, that's fair, right?
Yeah, it is. I would have rather, if I could have voted at that time, which I was too young, probably Bernie.
But Bernie wasn't in the general election. He was only in the primaries. We're not talking about primaries. I didn't vote for anybody.
Okay.
I've never voted in a primary for a person who went on to a general election.
Okay. So the classification is either Hillary or Trump. Probably Trump.
Yeah, great. So now, what are you calling in to propose? Do you have some way by which you can defend that, for example, Donald Trump, who you voted for in 2024, was an improvement over Joe Biden? Anything like that?
I'd say giving America more of a substantial voice, and by which I mean it is more of a presence, even though obviously America's reach is very wide-reaching.
Are you talking about a symbolic presence? Because if you're describing the economic impact on the global stage, you're objectively incorrect. So if you're just saying we're louder and people notice us more, even people who are just minding their own business and don't want to hear about us, even they're hearing about us, to that end, I could agree. Economically, Donald Trump's tariff scheme actually ruined our trade with the rest of the world. And now you have countries that traditionally relied on American trade switching much of their reliance on other countries, the big one being China. What you're describing is actually more something Donald Trump did for China than did for America. So I would need to know if you just mean symbolically, we're now the loudest guy at the party, but not the most successful.
Okay.
You know what? You know what might help.
That's very
is like just saying standing is very vague. Can you tell me specifically what it is that you're referring to? Like, what is the thing that you're looking at that you're like, that's the thing I like?
I guess, putting forth American, how do I say this? I say putting forth American values first. And I understand that you told me that the tariffs were actually not benefiting us, but in fact benefiting the government and the residents of China. I didn't
Correct.
actually know that.
What American value do you feel wasn't being platformed? Or you're saying putting American values first, it sounded like you were saying. What American value is now in a higher status specifically than it was under Biden?
Okay, so earlier, watching the stream, I believe that you were mentioning giving 300 billion or something, or rather around that, to the state of Israel.
No, Iran.
Oh, Iran. Okay.
Correct.
Right.
So Donald Trump said that the Obama deal with Iran was a disaster because 1.2 to 1.3 billion dollars of their money was returned to them. It wasn't, we weren't paying them. It wasn't like a ransom. It was money that had been taken and frozen in the past. We did a deal with them and we unfroze those assets and we returned the money. And that was the problem there. Now, similarly, Iran is getting $24 billion of unfrozen assets, which is, 10 times more than, 20 times as much. And they are getting $300 of committed investments, much of which will likely come from groups like, basically will be real estate deals for people that are in Donald Trump's orbit, like will benefit Jared Kushner. So what we're asking for,
like elitists that already have money.
Correct. Under Donald Trump, you have explosions of money going to the people who are already rich. Yes. So the question for you, though, was kind of now from both Jeff and I, could you go ahead and just be specific with you said American values now put first, as opposed to under Biden. This is the thing that was better. So if you will first just start with what is the name of the specific value or category, the specific value that Donald Trump has improved upon that is an American value.
I'd say sovereignty, or independence, instead of, sticking our finger in everyone else's pie. And getting involved with places that really have nothing to do with us, only for us to gain.
So could you tell me why we're in the war in Iran right now? Is it at the behest and for the best interest of the American people? Or are we doing it at the behest and the best interest of another super rich country that we're also funding things like their healthcare?
Well, my first instinct would say is oil. And secondly, what was the last part of your question?
Explain to me how the war in Iran doesn't actually show the opposite of what you said is true.
And while we're at it, also our interference in Venezuela,
right?
Just anywhere else that we've gone, yeah. How does that?
Cuba's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm sorry, gentlemen. I'm kind of getting two different questions that it's hard for me to multitask. It's all the same one.
You're describing our sovereignty is improved. I would argue under Joe Biden, we can actually see that American sovereignty was more powerful because all the world had to go through a COVID recovery and ours stood out as the strongest recovery. We struggled the least, and we came back the hardest, and we had the quickest reduction in things like inflation. So that to me actually describes a country who, while acknowledging that it does have a place on the world stage because our economy is global and keeping our trade partners strong, wait a sec. I just got a note that I have to check on. Keeping our still actually prioritizing actually prioritizing America and the success of Americans. So that would be my description of how Joe Biden's administration, again, whom I am not a fan of, only in comparison to Donald Trump do I prefer, because I'm a socialist. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a Democrat. I think that liberals do better things than the right do, but it is mostly performative, and it is mostly to feel good about trying, as opposed to seeking true demonstrable solutions to problems.
If I may, can I ask you, why do you not support Joe Biden, or would you much more prefer Kamala in the reins of dealing with
her name was Kamala.
These conflicts?
Kamala Harris is probably preferable to Joe Biden and is definitely preferable to Donald Trump. And we know that even more now. Joe Biden's going through recovery for aggressive prostate cancer. Had he been reelected, I have a feeling she'd be president anyway. But Joe Biden governed to the left of Obama, and Kamala Harris would have likely governed to the left of him. Kamala Harris also being a little bit younger and having a brain that is less deteriorating in the prefrontal cortex and less locked into things that can happen at an accelerated pace, the way we've seen happen to John Fetterman if you have brain injuries, and then happens to everybody when they're older, was probably more malleable and adaptable and may have been able to come around to a more reasonable position on something like Gaza. There was more, even if it was low, there was more hope for an improved Gazan situation if Kamala Harris had been elected than there would have been under way too Catholic Joe Biden. There are a lot of reasons to prefer, but we are right now still waiting for an answer to your question, or the question we've given to you, which is how, if sovereignty, by the way, sovereignty is not an exclusively American value. That's literally, if you have a country, you value sovereignty. So you didn't even go with something that actually makes us unique in some way. Sovereignty is why Russia is claiming they own Ukraine. Like it was under the banner of sovereignty that they're invading a foreign nation. Sovereignty is a claimed value of every state. So we can stick with sovereignty if you like. Go ahead. Sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't even know that you can measure it in degrees unless you're saying like another country can, like you can make a claim about Canada's sovereignty because they have to pay tithes to the king or whatever. But that's not really something that president to president you can say, hey, we're less sovereign because like we're making our own laws.
Yeah.
We're not, looking to any other country to guide us. But the thing about not putting our fingers in other countries, it's not bearing fruit. Like that's not what's happening.
Okay. Okay, if I can put it in another way, I would say, I'm sorry, gentlemen, I'm having a tough time articulating.
I think it's because you're trying to articulate a politically correct, like something that we won't detect immediately. I think you're trying to go, how do I describe that what I actually mean is nationalism?
Isn't every single country, like, can't you at least admit that every single country performs their own form of nationalism, and that's not necessarily...
What's the difference between nationalism and patriotism?
I'm not sure. Can you give me the definitions?
I
would say, oh, okay. Sorry.
I prefer to now ask, do you believe nationalism can exceed a point of being that actually in excess of nationalism? In other words, increasing nationalism, it would pass a point where more nationalism actually equals bad.
Yes. I do think that it can and eventually will, without being...
What are signs that nationalism has gotten too high?
I'd say probably being ignorant, bigoted, or xenophobic or intolerant of other people's
cultures. So would you say that it's the leaders start to describe America or a country, if they are too nationalist, as a place that is especially for certain ethnicities, and might start bastardizing other ethnicities, and maybe describe certain groups of people as specifically, or as tainting the blood of a country, that would be nationalism in excess?
I think it would depend whether or not it's a cultural aspect or a racial component. Because if it was a racial component, I would be completely against that.
Okay.
However, every culture has its problems that are problematic and toxic.
So let's talk about whether it's probably a racial. Let's talk about it if it's probably a racial issue. You know that America is supposed to take, all free countries are supposed to take refugees, right? You understand that's the sort of a world agreed upon thing. We agree to take refugees and to help countries that are hurting as the result of conflicts and wars and the like, right?
Yes, that's what the Statue of Liberty is for.
If I told you that since October of 2025, we've taken about 7,000 refugees, how many of those refugees? Low. Yeah, that is low. So we're already not meeting our thing. We've taken about 7,000 refugees since October of 2025. How many of those refugees, what percentage of them would have to be white versus non-white for you to go, this administration's got a racial issue?
I try not to. Okay, I'll try to answer your question.
So go crazy. Look, you don't have to. I won't make you defend the number if I think your number is too low. Just give me a number that you know for sure. Like with me and money, I'll be like, I don't know what the exact number is, but I know I can defend $100 million is absolutely the most a person should be allowed to make. It's probably lower than that, but it's easy to defend at 100 million. So for you, if you've got 7,000 people, what percentage of them would have to be white for you to go, this is looking like we're kind of racist?
So a hypothetical situation.
Yeah.
If, let's say for apartheid South Africa.
No, let's say the whole, all of our refugees.
Just hear me out.
No. Let's not just hear you out, because going to apartheid South Africa is you trying to get out of our world responsibility. So it wouldn't work anyway, because if you're only going to apartheid South Africa, you're basically going, well, if that's the refugees we're taking, they're going to be mostly white. I'm saying 7,000, all of our world's refugees. What percentage?
I'm not saying that I'm not only taking in white farmers or white South Africans.
Okay, so just answer my question instead of trying to morph it. Let's say since October 2025, we took around 7,000. I can actually give you the exact number. We took around 6,668. That is almost the exact number of refugees in America since October of 2025. What percentage of those would have to be white for you to go, oh shit, we might be racist?
Now I suspect he knows the answer.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't put a measurement on.
So you're telling me that if we had 6,668 refugees. Yeah, because you're not, because you're behaving in bad faith.
I'm articulating it, and you gotta let me respond, man.
That if 6,668 refugees from the whole world were brought last year, and 90% of them were white, you wouldn't think that makes us look like there's a race issue?
Well, supposing that this is a hypothetical, probably they would.
Okay, good.
They probably
so now
would
let me tell you the numbers. So now let me tell you the numbers, because we're talking about when nationalism gets too bad, you start to see it reflected in ethnic and racial discrimination and trying to form a country that has a specific ethnic makeup that you prefer on the basis of bigoted preconceived notions. So just so you know, of those 6,668 refugees, 3 of them were not white. Not 3%. 3 of them. 6,665 were from the country you wanted to bring up, South Africa. We have exclusively brought South African refugees, with the exceptions of 3 Afghanistanians, this while still leaving a number of refugees who were translators and fought for our side in the Middle East. People who literally have done more than most American citizens to defend what you're describing, American sovereignty, have done more than most Americans who live here. Those refugees were not allowed in. The refugees that were allowed in were 6,665 white South Africans, because our president believes in a white genocide conspiracy about South Africa.
Like some great replacement type, even though Africa's like primarily African and dark-skinned and brown-skinned people. I don't support that. Those people that have done more than any American citizen or white South African obviously should be let in. I think there's a part of this conversation that kind of needs to be addressed when talking about letting in refugees into the country is, what are they being let in for? Like, are they escaping violence or oppression or fascism?
This from the guy who brought up the promise on our Statue of Liberty earlier. Wasn't that you?
Yes. Yes.
And so you're asking what they're bringing in for. Again,
yes.
Apparently, whatever those 6,665 white people from South Africa were facing was worse than the refugees of the rest of the world, except for 3 isolated examples of Afghanistan. Is Donald Trump's administration showing nationalist tendencies beyond what is actually reasonable? This is the actual question, because that's what we were assessing.
I'd have to say yes. I would say yes. It is nationalistic. However,
problematically nationalistic was your question.
Problematically. I honestly fail to see how it's necessarily problematic. Yes, obviously we should do what we can to help people in their time of need. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we are
refugees, and he doesn't see how it's problematic. Right. He's failing.
Look, man.
I do. But
I get this weird feeling in my tummy about you, that there's something you want to say but you're not saying it, and I'm new on this show, so I don't want to like presume to give you like a whole runway, but it's a safe space, man. I'm not gonna get mad if you just say what you're saying. It looks like for example, there's a reason that you focused on South Africa. Methinks thou dost protest too much about like you not knowing stuff. Just say what you want to say, man.
All right. So what I wanted to say is, I do think it is nationalistic by bringing in primarily just white South Africans. However, America is a majority white country, and not saying that.
So what? Does it have to be?
Hold on. No, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be just white South Africans. It could be anyone. However,
but do we have to say majority white?
How much they are willing. I'm sorry?
Is it important that it stay majority white?
No, not to me. It doesn't.
You were about to say it's important how much they're willing to what?
It's important. Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily important. White people who have nationalistic or race realist opinions, who want to keep America majority white because it's homogenous, and there are examples of homogenous societies that flourish because there's basically only one type of person there. Not to say that there's no problems in that society.
That's not true.
But bringing in people from other cultures, different lands, can tend to complicate things.
That's also it's not true.
Okay.
First of all, homogenous societies rely on the exploitation of other societies to survive. So if I just count the societies where they're reaching out to steal crap, those aren't flourishing. So that's bad, right? You would say it's bad to steal stuff from other countries, right? Just say yes.
Probably yes.
Yeah. And so here, what we have is a majority. So we're not homogenous here. Where it's majority white doesn't mean homogenous. It's actually like not like homogenous is like a 1-0 proposition. So what you're saying
I didn't say it was homogenous in America. I said it was majority.
Yeah, but you said it's majority and people want to make it homogenous, which would mean eliminating the non-white element, right?
Eliminating how?
Whatever way I'm not a white nationalist, so whatever way those people want to do it, whatever way they want to do it, that's how they want to do it. But what I'm saying is, actually, you know what? I don't even care about that, because this doesn't really address Jimmy's question about why it's not problematic that we're just bringing in white refugees.
I would say, to address your question, is that our Black and brown South Africans going to integrate in the way that's going to be conducive and not only beneficial for their lives, but also for other Americans' lives, not bringing problems from their native homeland?
I'm not going to lie to you. That sounded a little triple K-ish.
Yeah, my dog's ears just piped up. Who's playing a dog whistle right now?
Yeah, that sounded...
You can interpret it that way, but
that sounded kind of...
I would say the same thing about white South
Africans. I will tell you, people who aren't racist actually resist their words being interpreted that way.
What does integration mean?
I'd say integration means... I would say it probably means conform is the wrong word.
Mm-hmm.
I would say
it is the wrong word.
Okay, well, conforming
You're
to
looking
culture
for assimilation
and traditions. Assimilation, okay. Assimilating to the culture, societal norms.
Kason, do you remember that we were talking about refugees?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do refugee programs insist on assimilation? If somebody attacked America and Saudi Arabia took you as a refugee and insisted you be Muslim, would that be considered a regular practice for refugee programs? Or would that be considered quite extreme?
Yeah, that would seem pretty...
So then if a refugee program isn't traditionally supposed to demand assimilation, though assimilation often happens anyway because people want to live comfortably in the countries they are in, wouldn't further evidence of that racism that I think you might find yourself having difficulty condemning it be that we seem to be seeking out the refugees that will already be pre-assimilated for us? As long as they're white, because we actually are ignoring even the pre-assimilated brown people.
Well, my question would be, the example that you gave was me being kidnapped and basically forced to become
not kidnapped.
A Muslim.
No, not kidnapped.
I do want to call out. It is interesting that you said refugee, Jimmy.
Yeah.
And in the racist translation machine that changed to... They kidnapped me.
No, they actually are your saviors. I said America got attacked. I said America got attacked, not by Saudi Arabia. America gets attacked. Saudi Arabia takes you in as a refugee because you are fleeing the war in America. But as part of you being a refugee, they insist on you converting to Islam. That would be considered whack, because that's not how refugee programs work. And we've been talking about refugees all this time. And in your mind,
is America doing that to refugees
also
here?
Must assimilate. We've already addressed they're doing that here, because we have now reduced ourselves to white people as refugees only because they come pre-assimilated. We already consider white South Africans mostly American in this country. They do a lot of business here. They're usually economically advantaged. And not to mention, one of them is now the richest person in the fucking world and decides who wins elections because he has enough money to do that and then gets the money back.
Also, we're just working with what you gave us. Like, you said assimilation. I didn't say that. Jimmy didn't say that.
Okay.
But you don't,
I don't
like,
know what to say, man.
You don't really mean assimilation, right? Like, assimilation culturally.
I don't.
Right? You know how boring life would be if there were.
I'm not saying that they can't practice their own cultures.
But you want them. You want everybody to practice their own culture. You want multiple different stripes of thought. You want multiple different stripes of, like, language, art, all of that stuff. So what is being assimilated?
Well, I'd say getting rid of the toxic and problematic parts of one's culture, because that's usually what people flee from.
Who decides which ones are toxic?
Either it's violent. I think there's a generality of good and evil. Like, if your culture...
No, but who decides what's toxic? Because right now, I grew up in a white Christian home that told me that black people who lived here as long as white people did and came here not by choice were failing to assimilate, despite the fact that they've been Americans for several generations. So literally, racist, conservative, Christian white people already considered people who are here and arguably have more right to this place than we do, are currently not assimilated with their baggy pants and their slang words and all of that sort of thing. And then they will describe people who don't learn English to their level of satisfaction, even if they are business owners, even if they're hard workers, even if they're in the military. But if they still have too strong an accent, that person's not assimilated. So when you're describing from the right these values of assimilation, I've seen what right-wing values of assimilation are, and they seem to be what we were describing in the first place, which is that we've been talking about some way Donald Trump has been preferable to Biden. And you described that he has put American values first. And the only American value you gave was sovereignty, which is a universal value of anyone who has a state, anyone who has a country. It's not American specific. So we made it American specific by making it basically America special sovereignty, aka nationalism. And then we assessed whether or not that nationalism is merely at the level of patriotism, or if it is exceeded, because actually nationalism is one of those things that once it goes past a certain level becomes extremely problematic. We seem to have identified through just this one example that we are at that place of problematic. And now you are just sitting here trying to define what is or isn't assimilation, just using the word broadly. And I think the problem we've run into this whole time, Kason, I'm going to give you a chance to give a final thought here. Let me finish. The problem that we've used is I think you have ideas of which side you are on, and you know the words they use, and you are essentially just throwing out broad concepts with little to no understanding of the nuance of those concepts. I don't even think you knew what the word assimilation really meant when you said it, for example.
I mean, you're not entirely wrong, but is it necessarily problematic to expect someone who's from a foreign country, whether you're an American going overseas and becoming a citizen or a naturalized citizen of that country, and vice versa, to expect them to speak at least some, if not most of the language that of the country that you're residing in. Like,
not in a melting pot. No, not in a melting pot country, and it's less relevant than ever now that we can do live fast translation with a phone. Generally, it will still happen because living in a place that is so English speaking, it will be advantageous to them and they will absorb it anyway. But no, I actually don't care whether or not people who move to America and become citizens actually learn. In fact, to tell you the truth, when I can't really eat a lot of foods these days, but when I would go to foreign restaurants, I thought it was part of the charm, honestly. And like, you know what, this place is going to be kind of more authentic because I can't speak to these people.
Okay. Well, what about?
Is it toxic to not follow the law?
Is it toxic to not follow the law?
Mm-hmm.
I would guess so, yes.
Is it toxic to have information available to you by way of your membership into a society where it's like free for you to get it and not look at it when it's super low effort to get it? Is that toxic?
No.
Huh. Different set of values with us.
Because I think it is. I think it's.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I didn't understand the question.
All right, I'll rephrase it in less smart speak. Is it toxic to have information at the ready that isn't available to other people and not use that?
You're talking about the communities that don't have access to that.
No, I'm talking about you. I'm saying, do you think it's toxic for you to have information available to you, like here, and not to use the information you have right here in front of you?
To do what?
Read it and learn it, and I don't know stuff.
I guess it's a matter of choice and what you put emphasis of importance on.
Sure. Here, I'll give you an example. You asked about refugees and assimilation. Did you know that we have a definition for a refugee?
Yes.
Okay. And you know that would you be surprised to know that it doesn't mention assimilation in that definition? Like not a dictionary definition. A bona fide federal United States, all the white people got together and said, this is what we think a refugee is, and we're writing that shit down.
Hey, I wasn't there. Not all of us.
All the white people minus Jimmy decided this is what a refugee is, and we're writing it down, and we're putting it on the internet, and anybody who wants to read it can read it. Would it surprise you to know that if you went to look at what all of them people said, the old white dudes, it doesn't say assimilation?
Okay. Well, then I would ask, what is the true definition of refugee? What is the purpose of the word?
You just made a mistake, man. Like, look, you asked me a question,
bro. I got you.
I got you. The mistake you made was you asked me this question way too close to Juneteenth, and I'm going to tell you about the question you asked. The question you asked requires education, and education is a labor verb. And if I answer that question, my ancestors will not allow me to get to sleep tonight. They will choke me. I don't want to be choked. No pause, but I do not want to be choked to the point where I can't sleep. You know what I mean? So when I say to you, you can find this, like if you write refugee legal definition, you'll find it in moments. It's literally on a government site. You can read it and understand it.
I'm watching the stream and I'm talking to you guys on my phone, and I don't want to close the stream.
All right.
I know you guys are at a computer. Can you just look it up and
here's what I'll do.
And read it?
With your permission,
I trust your
I'm
word.
going to put on a different hat. Hold on.
Well, and the only problem is we're running on time, and I really want to get this one other call. So
okay, really quickly, you're now talking to the bursar.
Yeah,
and the bursar is telling you that the tuition for this school is about $500. It doesn't have to go to me. It could go to me. It could go to Jimmy. It could go to Jovan. It could go to somebody on the stream.
Yeah.
And my hat fell off. Let me put the hat back on. This is a New York Yankee hat. Let's get some tuition, and we'll get you enrolled fast. Like, you're first in line, buddy.
Yeah, if you want to call to be educated instead of debate, that's another thing. But look, here's also the deal. I'm
not trying to debate you
like
guys,
this thing that you're describing, this thing that you're describing is already covered. Because listen, if a Muslim comes here as a refugee with his family, as a refugee, and he is a radical Muslim and decides to do an honor killing of his daughter, will he be tried for murder if he does so on American soil?
Probably. Would he not
everything that we need to do to any kind of requirement of assimilation is covered by our laws. You're not allowed as a refugee here to murder. You're not allowed to commit fraud. You're not allowed to, whatever you're describing as we just need to make sure they're not coming here and bringing the worst parts. Well, if it's a worse part that's so bad they can't bring it here, it would be a thing we already have illegal, because we will have people here who already have those views. I've seen it. That dude, Daniel Pachikachu or whatever, defending the most disgusting stuff like child marriage from Islam, isn't from the Middle East. He's from like Texas or some shit. And so we make those things illegal anyway, and refugees don't get a pass. So if something that could come from those cultures is so negative that we have to force them to assimilate out of that specific thing, even if they're a refugee, we make it illegal for all of the citizens. We don't disqualify them just on the basis of like, hey, you would totally be on board for this thing or whatever. Like that, it's whatever you're describing as like the appropriate level of assimilation is just, if you're here, you do still have to follow the laws. Anything beyond that is your own bigotry. This is your last, we'll give you a final moment here. The last point you got to make, and then we've got one other call we're going to have to try to compress to really fast.
Alrighty. I thank you, gentlemen. I wasn't really trying to come here to debate or to ruffle any feathers. I just wanted to get a perspective. And
nobody's ruffled, but it is a debate show. So don't call again unless you're calling to debate.
Okay. Well,
cool.
Like you said, I'm not educated on these topics. I just wanted to get some clarification.
And we're not educators. We're debaters. Thank you.